You were never asked if you wanted to be good. You were told to be good. You were told that good children are quiet. You were told that good children don't argue. You were told that good children sit still and smile. You were told that good children never make people uncomfortable. So you listened. You complied. You performed. You smiled when you were scared. You apologized when you were angry. You said thank you even when you felt hurt. They called it maturity. They called it discipline. They called it being raised well. You learned that kindness is more important than honesty. You learned that being liked is more important than being real. You learned that being easy to love means being easy to ignore. Every time you said yes when you meant no, they called you well-behaved. Every time you swallowed your voice, they called you considerate. You began to vanish. Not loudly, quietly. You slipped away piece by piece, until only the version they liked remained. You stopped asking what you wanted. You stopped trusting your anger. You stopped showing your fear. You became a mask so well made, even you forgot there was a face beneath it. You blended in. You kept the peace. You made no one uncomfortable. But inside, you were aching. You were folding yourself smaller and smaller to fit inside a definition that was never yours. This is the good prison, the one built from praise, the one reinforced by compliments, the one that rewards your disappearance. They never had to lock the door because you locked it yourself, and they never asked you if you were free. They only asked you to be good. You became so good at being what others needed that you forgot who you were before they told you. You knew how to be polite, how to be appropriate, how to say what would keep the peace. You were the version of yourself that didn't make anyone uncomfortable. But inside, something began to ache. Something that no one could see, because all they ever saw was the mask. They complimented the mask. They praised the mask. They celebrated the mask. And you wore it so long that it fused with your skin. You started to believe that the performance was the person. You smiled automatically. You answered before you thought. You apologized without knowing why. You laughed when you didn't feel joy. You agreed when you didn't believe. You said "I'm fine" so often that you began to believe it might be true. But late at night, when no one was watching, the cracks would show. The smile would falter. The silence would sting. And a voice, faint but real, would ask, "Where did I go?" Carl Jung called this the persona. It is not a lie. It is not evil. It is a survival tool. It is how you navigate the world. It is how you avoid rejection. It is how you maintain peace. But it is not the self. It is a mask you created to hide what you feared they would not accept. And the danger was never wearing the mask. The danger was forgetting that you were wearing one at all. You didn't lose yourself in a moment. You lost yourself over years of tiny silences, of small lies, of quiet nods, of saying yes when you meant no. They told you. You were becoming someone, but you were actually disappearing. And now, even when someone truly sees you, you don't know what to show them, because all you have is the mask. You were taught to be nice, to be agreeable, to make others feel comfortable. You were told that kindness is always right, that politeness is always good, that saying yes is love. But no one told you that honesty is not always gentle, that kindness without truth is not kindness at all. So you became pleasant. You became agreeable. You smiled when it hurt. You nodded when you disagreed. You offered help when you had nothing left to give, and they praised you for it. They called you kind, but they never saw the cost. They didn't see that you were silencing yourself, In every conversation that you said yes because you were afraid to lose them. That you gave because you didn't believe. You were allowed to ask. You weren't helping them. You were betraying yourself. And in doing so, you built a life no one truly understood. Being kind should never mean being silent. Being generous should never mean being invisible. You are not bad for setting boundaries. You are not cruel for saying no. You are not selfish for telling the truth. But the longer you suppress your truth, the louder your resentment grows, until one day you explode and no one understands why, because you never showed them what was true in the first place. Kindness is not the absence of conflict. It is the courage to be real, even when it's uncomfortable. You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't owe anyone your self-abandonment. You don't owe anyone a false version of you, just to keep their image of you intact. You can be kind and still be honest. You can be loving and still say no. You can be gentle and still walk away. There is a part of you you've tried to forget, a part that is angry, a part that is jealous, a part that is impulsive, selfish, wild. You were told to silence it, so you did. You buried it. You ignored it. You smiled over it, but it didn't go away. It waited. Carl Jung called it the shadow. It is everything about you that you were told not to be. It is everything you rejected. To survive, it is the version of you you were not allowed to love. The more you deny your shadow, the more control it gains. It becomes sarcasm that poisons your words. It becomes passive aggression that leaks into your relationships. It becomes guilt you don't understand. It becomes anxiety that never quite explains itself. You think you're in control, but the part you ignore is driving the car. You think you're patient, but you're actually repressed. You think you're understanding, but you're just scared of conflict. You think you're strong, but you're afraid of being seen as weak. And every part of you that never got a voice is sharpening its teeth in silence, waiting to be heard, waiting to come back. And when it does, it won't knock politely. It will break the door. The shadow is not evil. It is exiled. It is the part of you that only wanted to be known. But when you silence it, it doesn't disappear. It festers. It grows teeth. It finds other ways out. In your dreams, in your outbursts, in the people you attract, in the chaos you don't understand. The shadow doesn't hate you. It just wants to come home. What you do not face within, you begin to see without. What you repress in silence, you project in anger. The more you deny your shadow, the more it appears in others. You will call others selfish because you've never claimed what you need. You will call others aggressive because you've never expressed your truth. You will call others dramatic because you've buried your grief so deep you forgot it still lives inside you. You will think they are the problem, but they are only the mirror, showing you the parts of yourself you refuse to acknowledge. You wonder why the world feels so hostile, so tense, so personal. But the war isn't out there. It's inside. And because you haven't made peace with it, you send it into every room you walk into. The hostility you sense is the scream of your own shadow, echoing through strangers. You don't see people as they are. You see them as the version of yourself you're too afraid to meet. You say, they never listen, but you never speak. You say, they're always taking, but you never ask. You say, they betrayed me, but you abandoned yourself long before they did. The shadow doesn't stay quiet. It waits. And when the pressure becomes too much, it finds a face to wear, usually someone else's. You cannot heal what you keep calling them. You cannot grow while projecting your shadow onto the world. Your shadow is not your enemy. It is your map. It leads you back to yourself, but only if you're brave enough to look in the mirror and say, "That's me." You buried your shadow. For years, you pretended it wasn't there. You called it names. You shamed it. You starved it. But you never truly let it die. And now, you're exhausted. You say yes, even when you're breaking. You smile, but feel nothing. You wake up, but don't know who's living your life. Your shadow has learned how to walk like you, talk like you, make decisions like you, choose partners like you. But its reasons are different. It's not choosing out of love. It's choosing from wounds. You keep falling for the same person. With a different face, you keep entering the same arguments. With different names, you think it's fate, but it's your shadow. Choosing from fear, you're not looking for love. You're looking for someone who makes your pain familiar, because the shadow doesn't want peace. It wants repetition. It wants the cycle. It wants the known. You chose the job they expected. You became the version of yourself that got applause. You built a life that looked perfect on paper. But every day feels like a role you're still pretending to believe in. You don't remember why you said yes. You only remember that saying no felt dangerous. You wonder why life feels hollow, why nothing satisfies. It's because your shadow made your choices, and it chose based on what you feared, not what you loved. You didn't notice when the mask became your skin. You didn't notice when your choices stopped feeling like yours. You didn't notice when your shadow stopped hiding, because by then you had forgotten there was ever a real you underneath. This is the moment you begin to feel the truth that sometimes the person you've become was never really you. It was just the one who survived. Healing doesn't begin by destroying your shadow. It begins by turning toward it, by saying, "I see you now." You will not meet your shadow with fireworks. You will meet it in quiet moments, in deep discomfort, in the truth that you almost didn't say. You will meet it when you stop running, when you sit with what you've buried, when you ask yourself, "What am I pretending not to feel?" You will find anger and realize it was grief. You will find envy and realize it was longing. You will find bitterness and realize it was abandonment. You will see that none of it was evil. It was pain that no one helped you name. And in that naming, you begin to reclaim. You begin to feel whole again. Not perfect, but real. You don't defeat the shadow. You listen to it. You let it speak. You let it tell you what it's been trying to say. For years, you will cry. You will grieve. You will feel ashamed. And then you will feel something new. Relief. Because there is no peace in pretending, but there is peace in being whole, even with your sharp edges, even with your darkness, even with your wounds. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." You are not broken. You are not split in half. You are not only light or only dark. You are both. And only when you embrace the shadow do you begin to walk whole into the light. You were taught to aim for perfection, to never make mistakes, to never break. But wholeness is not the same as perfection. Wholeness means you are no longer at war with yourself. Wholeness means you have met your darkness and chosen not to exile it. It means you are honest, not flawless. You will still get angry. You will still feel jealous. You will still fail sometimes. But now, you will not pretend otherwise. Now, you will own your truth. Without shame, wholeness begins. The moment you say, I am not perfect, and I'm allowed to be that. You are not meant to be good all the time. You are meant to be real. That means sometimes you are soft, and sometimes you are sharp. Sometimes you're the storm, and sometimes the shelter, and both are you. You don't need to erase your shadow. You need to dance with it. Let it move with you. Let it speak with you. Let it teach you where you've been and where not to return. Your shadow is not a flaw. It is a compass. It shows you what still needs love. To become whole is not to rise above your darkness. It is to root yourself in it, to know it, to not be afraid of it. That is what makes you strong. Not the image you show the world, but the depth you carry within. Carl Jung didn't ask us to become perfect. He asked us to become whole. And that journey begins the moment you stop pretending and start remembering who you truly are. Your shadow was never trying to destroy you. It was trying to get your attention. It whispered in your loneliness. It screamed in your anger. It begged in your anxiety. And you called it bad. You called it wrong. You called it unworthy. But what if it was just the younger version of you, still waiting to be seen, still waiting to come back home? The shadow holds everything you weren't allowed to feel. It carries the guilt you weren't ready to admit, the sadness you were taught to hide, the fire you were punished for showing. You think it's your enemy, but it's just a memory, frozen in time, asking, can I come with you now? You have tried to outrun yourself, but your shadow is not outside you. It is the soul you left behind, and it still believes you will one day return for it. You do not heal the shadow by force. You heal it through presence, through listening, through softness, through saying, I didn't know, but I do now. The shadow does not need your shame. It needs your honesty. And once it is heard, it no longer needs to shout. You were never broken. You were just incomplete. The parts you hid away never stopped loving you. They waited through the noise, through the masks, through the years of pretending, and now you are whole. Not because you removed your darkness, but because you embraced it. Your shadow never hated you. It was only asking to be loved, the way no one ever taught you to love yourself. There comes a moment when you stop running, not because you're tired, but because you're ready. Ready to stop fixing, ready to stop performing, ready to stop pretending. You sit down with yourself, and for the first time, you don't try to change anything. You just breathe. This is not a story of fixing your darkness. It's a story of making peace with it. You realize now the rage was protection. The sadness was wisdom. The fear was memory. And the shadow was never trying to hurt you. It was trying to bring you home. You are not the mask you wore. You are not the silence you kept. You are not only the good parts, you are everything. And that is not too much. That is just real. The shadow and the self now walk as one. No longer chasing, no longer hiding, just living fully. Finally, Carl Jung didn't promise ease. He promised meaning. To become whole is to carry your shadow without shame, to live without lying to yourself anymore, to make choices not from fear, but from truth. And in that truth, there is peace. Not perfection, but peace. The kind that comes only when all your parts are finally home.